Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. I've been out playing football tonight, so I'm rewarding myself, if you like, for scoring a few goals. For this one, we're going to go back to Aberdeenshire to revisit Brewdog, and we're going to do the final beer in the IPA Is Dead 2014 range. So I've already reviewed for you Comet, Kohatu and Amarillo, and the final one is the experimental 366 hop. So as I've mentioned to you in previous videos, this is a series of single hop IPAs, and the idea behind them is that they all have the same base beer, just a different hop, so it allows you to taste what each kind of individual hop can contribute to a beer. It's a very, very interesting sort of series to review for you, and they release these every single year as well. You get a different 4-pack every year. So as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll just take you through a very brief history of Brewdog. It will be very short because I've done a number of these reviews for you already. Check out the link to those in the video description. But as always, if you are simply interested in the tasting, just fast forward a few minutes and you will get straight to that, and I will be telling you some facts about the actual hop that goes into this beer as well. So anyway, Brewdog were founded back in 2007 by two guys, James Watt and Martin Dickey, but more recently they've moved down to their new base at Ellon in Aberdeenshire, which is about 20 miles or so to the north of the city of Aberdeen. They were originally based up in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of the country. These days they're very well known for being an experimental brewery. They're pretty much the flag carriers of Scottish craft brewing these days. They have a small series of, a small core range of beers, I should say, of about 8 different beers, but largely most of their beer is brewed one-off or on a sort of rotational basis, and that's the only downside. There's so many good beers come out of this brewery, but you really need to kind of keep up to date with them if you do want to taste them all. That's the only downside to these guys. They're also very famous for their strong beers. They've held the title of World's Strongest Beer on more than one occasion. I think it's 3 separate occasions they've held it, but they've pulled out of that race now. But these days they do have a very kind of strong chain of brew pubs. These started opening in 2009 in Aberdeen, then they expanded throughout Scotland and into England, and pretty much every major city in England has one of these pubs now. So they're also expanding abroad with these as well. There's one in Firenze in Italy, Stockholm and Gothenburg in Sweden, Tokyo in Japan, and also Sao Paulo in Brazil. And you will see these appearing in Berlin, Paris, Brussels, and also in the States, Canada, and New Zealand and Australia as well. So keep an eye out for those. But the brewery are very, very cool, very experimental, you know, very inspired by the sort of American craft brewing renaissance. And they're actually the largest independently owned brewery in Scotland these days, which is really quite cool. As I say, they're pretty much the flag carriers of Scottish craft brewing, and the sort of growth that this brewery has undergone has been quite remarkable, considering they're only about 7 or 8 years old these days. Very, very cool company to actually study if you're sort of into business economics and things like that. The other cool point about this brewery is that they are opening up bottle shops now. There's the first one of those opened up in London, and they're talking about the next one being in Aberdeen, in their home city, so that should be a really cool development for the city anyway. So that's your very sort of short and brief history of the Brewdog brewery. I'll just tell you a little bit about the hop that goes into this beer. As I mentioned to you at the start of this video, all of these beers in the IPA Is Dead 2014 range, or all of the IPA Is Dead ranges, they are the same base beer essentially. So you have a 7.2% single hop IPA, and all of the beers have a malt base of Maris Otter, crystal malt, and caramel. And the previous year in 2013, I believe they were 6.7%, but they've amped it up this year to 7.2%, which is quite cool. So as I say, the same base beer but just a different hop, and the hop in this one is experimental 366, and it was originally unnamed, but I believe it was referred to initially as HBC Home Brewing Company, I believe, experimental 366. But I've seen a few places nowadays when I was researching this, they seem to call it the Equinox hop now, but apparently it's very, very sought after and actually quite an expensive hop. But it was initially released by Hop Breeding Company in a joint venture between John I. Haas, which is Simply Hop's parent company, and Select Botanicals Group. It seems to be a sort of crossbreed or a hybrid hop essentially. Apparently it possesses a pronounced aroma profile with citrus, tropical fruit, floral and herbal characteristics. The alpha acid content of this one is quite high. It's between 14.4 and 15.6%. The beta acid content is between 4.6 and 5.1%, and the oil content in this guy is 2.9 milliliters per 100 grams, which I think gives it quite a bit of piney resin feel. I'm not sure if that's high or not, but it's quite an interesting hop anyway, and it's really cool these days how there was a real sort of shortage of hops after the Second World War, but these days they can actually interbreed hops and get kind of favourable characteristics, if you like, so it's very, very cool. So we'll get on to the tasting of this guy now. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. It's the standard Brewdog artwork, although I should point out that they have changed their artwork. I'm a little bit disappointed about it because I do like this old style, and the new ones seem a little bit kind of hard on the eye, if you like. There's a lot going on in the label, and I do like this kind of quite sort of plain and simple thing, and the Brewdog crest and stuff. I really like that, but we'll see how we get on with it. Maybe it will grow on me, who knows. But I'll just read out the kind of Brewdog blurb. Every single one of their bottles has a different blurb on it, and it says here, at Brewdog we are insanely passionate about hats, rock and roll, penguins, avoiding ghosts and hops. We bloody love hops, and they are a very hop forward brewery. But we felt that it was time hops went solo and got their own primetime show. IPA Is Dead showcases 4 killer hop varieties to create 4 radically different single hop IPAs. Each IPA contains the same malt backbone and is brewed to be 75 IBU and is enthusiastically kettle hopped and dry hopped with Amarillo, Experimental 366, Kohatu and Comet hops. To appreciate the true character, flavour and aroma of our favourite hops, you need them in their purest undiluted form. Can you say you've ever experienced 100% pure hop awesomeness? IPA Is Dead is brewed and bottled to do just that. Standard Brewdog bottle cap on this one, by the way. I forgot to show you that, but let's get this guy open and get on with the tasting here. As I mentioned, it's a 7.2% single hop IPA. And this is another one, incidentally, that I've picked up from Lewis at Thistle News in Aberdeen. So if you're watching my reviews from the Aberdeenshire area of Scotland, go and check out Lewis's shop. Very good for picking up the Brewdog beers and indeed Toul and McKellar beers. Very good for Danish beers, but he is getting quite a lot of kind of random American stuff in there. So if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. You will see a few of these on the channel in the very near future. But let's get this guy up. I'll bring the light over and we can have a little look at the colour on this one. If I'm not mistaken with this guy, it looks a little bit clearer than the other ones that I've already reviewed for you in the series. Just trying to get you to get a good look at this, but it's a nice kind of orangey amber colour. It is a little bit clearer than the other ones. There's a good bit of visible carbonation, small bubbles going up to the top of the to the underside of the head, sorry, and there's about a good half finger of a frothy white head there. That's going to kind of fade to be a very sort of thin foamy layer. But let's give it a smell now and see how we get on here. So, quite tropically and quite kind of piney aromas you're getting from this one. There's a lot of orange citrus in there too. You can smell that. It's not sharp like tangerine. It is a kind of quite, not pungent I would say, but a fairly, it's very present. You can just pick up that kind of orange smell with it. But a lot of nice orangey citrus in there on top. You've got a little bit of the kind of grapefruit sort of soury aroma, if you like. There's a little bit of lime in there too. Yeah, definitely a little bit of lime character in there, which is quite interesting actually. So you've got a nice mix of fruits in there already. Grapefruit, orange and lime. But you've got a quite sweet caramel malt base in there, which is what you would expect with the kind of Maris Otter crystal and caramel that's in this beer. But it's got a little bit of spicy character too. You can just pick that up. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out in the taste. But it's got a good bit of kind of bready aroma, but the main part of the malt base, you'll get the malt aromas when you sort of sugar it up. But the caramel is kind of subduing a lot of the bready and just a little bit of the spicy aromas too. But it seems quite an interesting beer, so let's get it out, or let's give it a try rather. Yeah, a lot of ripe fruit in this beer. Yeah, there's a lot of nice kind of citrusy orange flavour in this one, and that kind of sits just at the front of the tongue, and you're getting this nice kind of grapefruit flavour in the aftertaste. You're getting a nice bit of grapefruit and sort of piney resin flavour coming out. The fruit character does have that kind of lime feel to it as well, which is quite interesting. It's quite common in IPAs to get the sort of orangey and grapefruit character, but that lime that comes out in this hop seems to add another really dimension to it. This hop is definitely a little bit more punchy, definitely than the Kohatu and the Amarillo, and even more so than the Comet. I remember saying that the Kohatu and Amarillo were quite mild sort of complexing hops. The Comet was a little bit more punchy, but this is even more punchy than this, so I can see Brewdog using this in quite a lot of their beers in the near future. They really love kind of fruity and sort of really punchy hops like that. yeah, you've got a really nice juicy fruity quality to it. This beer has a really wet mouthfeel, and it really helps kind of bring out that orangey citrus, and there's even a little bit of mango in here. I think there is just that little kind of nice kind of sweet tropical mango flavour in there, and there is that lime, which really, it makes the fruity character in this one very complex, and I do enjoy that. This one, which is quite interesting, it really doesn't have any sort of grassy or aromatic character to it, which is very, very interesting. It doesn't feel kind of quite as fresh as some of the other ones did. This one really is a more kind of really juicy, fruity hop. The other ones did have that element of kind of grassy and aromatic character that went round the edges of the tongue and made it very fresh. This one doesn't have that, so you can start to see when you do these beers just how well you can blend these hops together for those different qualities. But yeah, you get that nice kind of grapefruity character just going around the sort of edges of the palate, not quite right on the edges of the tongue, but you've got a nice orangey character that just lays a little bit of a blanket, and kind of you have this kind of wet layer going across the tongue, which is where the lime and just a little bit of the mango comes out as well. It's a very complex blend of fruit. But underlying, you do have this nice kind of caramel malt base. There is just a tiny, tiny little bit of spice in this one, and it's really interesting. You just have that little mild bit of fruit, and the spice comes out in the aftertaste just towards the back of the tongue. But the caramel is very nice, and it actually works well. This one, in these ones I've noticed this year, the 7.2% does give it just a little bit of alcohol warmth, and the caramel really helps kind of bring that out and complements it very well actually. But yeah, the caramel just kind of sits in the middle of the tongue, that nice kind of alcoholic caramel. It's a really, really nice beer. I can see why this hop is really, really sought after. It's a really kind of juicy, fruity blast. But in terms of the mouthfeel with this guy, it's mid-bodied. It's only a little bit oily actually. It's more of a wet mouthfeel in this one. As I said to you, it has a little bit of alcohol warmth, but it's quite smooth. The carbonation is very, very low. And it's not even really dry in the finish, this one, which is quite interesting. It has a little bit of dry character in the aftertaste, and that's where the sort of grapefruit, and there is, I should say, I never said that, there is a little bit of kind of piney and resinous character that just sits at the back of the tongue. So you have a little bit of that dry character right at the back. But, I mean, overall, this is a really quite punchy and fruity hop, and this is an awesome IPA. I mean, as I said to you at the start of the video, it's a real shame that these beers are only brewed once. I'd really love to see them do this single hop IPA because it really is beautiful. This one is definitely the best of the series, so I've saved the best till last, kind of just by randomly going in the fridge and picking one out. But this is a really, really nice hop, and it's a really nice IPA. And if they can produce hops like this by experimenting, hail science. It's a really nice IPA this, and it's a shame that it is only a one-off brew. But anyway, overall, definitely, if you get the chance, try the 4-pack of the IPA Is Dead range. Definitely worth trying every year, and I will try and get next year's one, and the Unleash the Yeast series, which comes out, I think, in November. I will try and get a hold of those for you and review them. I always like doing my Brewdog beers. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. Let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it. And as always, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and you will get more Brewdog beer reviews in the future. Cheers.